لا بعده لا قبله تعميما صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما لم يخلق الخلاق خلقا مثله لا خلقه لا خلقه لا شكله لا بعده لا قبله تعميما صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما لم يخلق الخلاق خلقا مثله لا خلقه لا خلقه لا شكله لا بعده لا قبله تعميما صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما لم يخلق الخلاق خلقا مثله لا خلقه لا خلقه لا شكله لا بعده لا قبله تعميما صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما لم يخلق الخلاق خلقا مثله لا خلقه لا خلقه لا شكله لا بعده لا قبله تعميما صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما لم يخلق الخلاق خلقا مثله لا خلقه لا خلقه لا شكله لا بعده لا قبله تعميما صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما لم يخلق الخلاق خلقا مثله لا خلقه لا خلقه لا شكله لا بعده لا قبله تعميما صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما لم يخلق الخلاق خلقا مثله لا خلقه
وعلى آلك وأصحابك الصلاة والسلام عليك وعلى آلك وأصحابك the diamond benefits is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. صلوا عليه صلى الله عليه وسلم. Inshallah, you will be discussing and theoretically human rights now. And in this kind of fundamental parts, and all of it, but inshallah we'll break it down and try to understand it in a bit of detail. To begin with, the first part is which things do we do when we come across one of our Muslim brothers who is about to pass away. If he hasn't passed away yet, and he's in, because it's final few breaths, the final few moments. And what do we do at that moment? What is our responsibility as a Muslim? Which things Islamically should we remember at that time and we should act upon? So inshallah, if we try to listen carefully and watch carefully at the same time, hopefully there's a lot to learn. And I will inshallah do the theory of the inshallah human rights, and our idea of the Rasheed sahab inshallah, he will do the practical side of it. To begin with, I'm going to just get straight into it. So imagine a person is about to die, you know, he's on his final few moments and he's about to pass away. This is known as Sakaratul-Maut, the pangs and the agonies of death at the end of his life. What you're supposed to do at that time, when the death approaches, and sometimes you can tell, either the doctors have told you some signs are visible, then these are the few actions that you should do on the sunnah. And what is that? Is either you lay the dying person on his right side and you position his face towards the qibla. This is one thing you can do. But in most cases, you lay him straight. This is also permissible. But as you can see, this little dummy here is laying straight and position its feet towards the qibla. And in this way, his face should be facing towards the qibla. So you've got two options, either on the right side and face the head towards the qibla, or lay him on his back straight and then his feet toward the qibla and raise his head slightly. But sometimes, you know, the deceased, the ones that's about to die, he's in such a weak condition, he's so weak, that even if you move him slightly, it may cause him pain and extreme difficulty. So if you can't do it or it may cause him pain, then you don't need to raise his head at all. You know, when a person is about to die, you know, we should look for 3 signs. If you keep these 3 signs in your memory, this is a sign that person was a believer. Say subhanallah. Listen carefully to these 3 signs. It's mentioned, Sayyidina Salman Farsi radiallahu ta'ala, and he said that he heard the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saying, look for 3 signs in a dying person. He hasn't died yet, he's about to die, he's in his final few moments. Number 1, if his forehead gets sweaty, a sweaty forehead. Number 2, tears come into his eyes. The first one is he's got a sweaty forehead. Number 2, tears come into his eyes. And number 3, his nostrils flare, they widen. Then the Prophet said that this is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the mercy, this is the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are some signs that you can look in a dying person, and this will highlight that he is a believer. And if you don't see these signs, it does not mean that he's not a believer. Okay? But these are just some signs, some good signs. Another thing that you can do, and this is also sunnah, is when a person is about to die, the dying person, do talqeen. talqeen. Now what is talqeen? Well, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Do talqeen to the dying person with the words La ilaha illallah. Okay. So Amir al-Mu'mineen Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala, he said that please be near the people who are dying at the time of their death. Do talqeen of kalima tayyibah, La ilaha illallah, and do the dhikr of kalima tayyibah in front of them. Why? It tells us the reason why we should do this. Sometimes, we have a relative, and the doctors have said that, look, they've only got 1 hour to survive. He says, find a few moments, or it's her, find a few moments, come and spend some time with them. Right? And at that time, people are finding everything. But you guys are students of knowledge. You guys should do the extra thing. And what is that? You should recite the kalima tayyibah. Why? Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala says, because these dying people see those things which you do not see. So at that time, it's very, very important that we should remember to do the kalima tayyibah and recite it aloud. And when should we do it? At the time of the death. Do talqeen to a dying person until the soul reaches the throat. And everything before that, continue doing La ilaha illallah. So what does talqeen mean? So some of you want to know what talqeen is. It basically means to recite Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And you can even say La ilaha illallah. As you know, some people, when they're around the person dying, they be reading the kalima loud. La ilaha illallah. This is what you call talqeen. But something directly to recite the kalima, because he's in a state of difficulty. Right? He's going through the agonies of death, and for him to recite something could be very difficult. So rather than you telling him directly or instructing him directly, don't do this. And just say La ilaha illallah yourselves. If he has the power and the ability and the strength and the understanding at that time, then he will read along with you. And if he doesn't, then that's fine also. If he recites the kalima, stop the talqeen. But if he speaks, sometimes he recites the kalima, but then he says a few more words to his family members. If he speaks some worldly things or something else, then repeat the kalima again. So then do talqeen again. So that his last words are La ilaha illallah. Why should we keep this in mind? Because it's mentioned in the hadith of Abu Dawood, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stated, the one whose last words are La ilaha illallah, Dakhil al-Jannah, you will enter into paradise. So when we are dying, that someone does talqeen to our Muslim brothers and sisters, and in particular aspect. Just a few more pointers about this. Who should do the talqeen? If you are there and nobody else is to do it, then by all means. But what would be more better is a pious person, a scholar, a religious person, an imam. If he does the talqeen, this is even more better. And it shouldn't be someone who is actually happy that this person is dying. Okay, it shouldn't be him. Okay, it shouldn't be a sinful person, but it should be a person who is pious and practicing. Okay, another thing that you can do when a person is about to pass away is recite Surah Yasin, and Surah Al-Ra'd. These are two surahs that have been recommended in Islam, that when a person is about to pass away, recite Surah Yasin aloud and Surah Al-Ra'd near the person who is passing away. And inshallah, if you do people have bugs in their house and stuff like this, right? So at that time, any photographs, any images, or any dogs, anything like this, it shouldn't be there in the first place. But in particularly at that time, they shouldn't be there, because wherever there's photographs in the home, or wherever there's dogs, then the angels of rahmah, mercy, don't come in those houses. So that person at that time is deprived from the angels of mercy coming next to him. So these are things that you should remove immediately, and you shouldn't have them in the first place. And at that time, You know, another thing that the ulama, the instructors and the guiders, and they tell us that, you know, at that time, rather than talking about the person's weaknesses and faults and, you know, defects and stuff like that, or talking about his properties and stuff like that, at that time, you should be asking Allah for forgiveness for him. You should be doing dua for him. These are the important things that you should be doing. And another thing, you know, sometimes you're at home. Now, this happens and we don't even realize sometimes. Right? Sometimes you're at home and you've got sisters there as well. And sometimes the sisters are in the state of impurity, right? They're going through menstruation or postnatal bleeding or stuff like this, okay? So can they be present near the dead person, the dying person? Yes, they can be. They can be. There's no harm for them to be near the dying person. However, a woman who has not yet performed ghusl after the completion of a monthly cycle or postnatal bleeding, and a junub, someone who has ghusl fard upon them, they should not be present there. They should not be present there. So these are a few things that we should keep in our minds. And this was the first segment of today, you could say, leading up to the person dying, what we should do. So in summary, we should what? We should lay him on his right hand side or on his back and face the head towards the Qibla. Number two, we should do talqeen. Okay, recite La ilaha illallah. Don't instruct him directly, but recite it aloud around him, and hopefully he will follow. And once you recited the kalima, then don't make him do the talqeen anymore. That's done now. And then thirdly, if there's any dogs or photographs and stuff like this, remove them away from the dying person. And if you can recite Surah Yasin and Surah Al-Ra'd, and these are excellent things that you can do at the time of death. So, inshallah, moving on now to the next part is when the person has passed away now. So now you know that this person, his soul has been taken away, has departed from his body. What do we do at that time? There's a few things that we should keep in mind at that time as well. Okay. So when the soul departs, tie a wide ribbon from below the lower jaw till the head, so that the mouth does not remain open. So sometimes the person's mouth is open when he passed away, and if you don't close it, okay, straight away, then afterwards it could become stiff and a bit difficult, and after force it could cause grief to the deceased. So what you can do is you can tie like a ribbon, a wide ribbon, from the lower jaw, okay, till the head. So if you, inshallah, is there camera and stuff as well? So this is what you need to basically do. From the lower jaw and then to the head. You close the mouth. And I want you to, whilst you're watching this, right, I don't want you to like joke or laugh, because it's not, you should be really serious, and you should be thinking that one day, you know, we're going to go through this procedure as well. And we don't even know if you might get this procedure or not, okay? So you should be thinking about death at the same time. This is another thing. This is one of our intentions behind all of this as well. We're here to educate and learn as well, but at the same time to ponder and reflect over our death as well. So this is what is the blueprint. So that's the first thing. The second thing that you need to do is the eyes need to be closed. Okay, so the deceased person's eyes are still open, close them immediately. Okay, and then you've got the fingers, you've got the hands and the legs, and they should be straightened. So sometimes he's laying in his own position and he passes away in that position. So what you do is you straighten the legs, you straighten the arms and the fingers of the hands and the toes of the feet. And who should perform these acts? The family member of the deceased, like the father or the son, who can perform them more gently. Okay, so it shouldn't just be any random person, someone who's actually closest to the person deceased, and then he'll actually do it more in a gentle manner. And what's the dua that you recite when you close the eyes? It's actually a dua that has been mentioned. Bismillahi wa ala millati Rasulillah. What's the dua, everybody? Bismillahi wa ala millati Rasulillah. Okay, and there's another dua as well. I'll just read it, but you can learn it, inshallah. Allahumma yassir alayhi amrahu wa sahil alayhi ma ba'dah wa as'idhu bi liqa'ik waj'al ma kharaja ilayhi khayran mimma kharaja anhu, which means, oh Allah, ease his matter on him and also ease on him the matters following it. Make him fortunate with your meeting and make his afterlife better than his worldly life. So this is a dua that you can do for the deceased. Okay. And if you want to recite the Quran next to the deceased, you can do so. If you want to do tasbih, you can do so. If you want to do any other form of zikr, you can also do so. Make sure the body is covered with a cloth. This is very, very important as well. Okay. Let's move on now to the next part. Now we're going to go to the next, you could say, part of this session, and that is the ghusl mayyit. Okay. Yeah. जी फरमाएं
जोश का पुजारी कमिट टू नो इसके उसके पिक दो टोज एंड टू टाइप कर दें ठीक है बहुत बड़ा से यहाँ पर परफॉर्मेंस होते हैं वो भी टाइप कर दें और द सीट पर से इट इज वेरी एनी ज्वेलरी एनीथिंग ऑन के हाथों में मतलब उसको निकाल लें टेक ऑफ कर दें
so so we've already said that straighten the legs and the feet, and you know the toes of the deceased also between one toe and the other toe, again tie a ribbon between them so the feet are joined together. Okay. And the second thing is if the deceased is wearing any jewelry, male or female, male or female, any jewelry, any watch, anything that they brought on that will be you will have to take off for ghusl, then you do that now so it's more easier rather than later on. And if they have any fake teeth, okay, artificial teeth, anything like this, sometimes old people have these fake teeth for their convenience, and you can also remove them, and you should remove them as well. So now we're going to go on to the ghusl, make it the ghusl of the deceased. But before, I mean, if I was to ask any of you guys, how many of you guys have actually given ghusl to a deceased person? Most of us may have not even given even one ghusl to our, any deceased Muslim. And maybe some of us may have given it only to our own family members. But there's lots of reward in giving ghusl to a mayyit. And if we have this reward in our minds, then inshallah, we'll be more, you can say, motivated and encouraged to do it. And that is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that the one who gives ghusl to any deceased, it doesn't have to be the family member, any deceased Muslim person will become so pure and so clean from his sins like he was on the day when his mother gave him birth. So look at the reward, all his sins are forgiven, he becomes pure and clean. Okay. And then you have the Islamic ruling. What is the Shari'i ruling of ghusl mayyit? Giving ghusl to the deceased is fard kifaya. Fard kifaya, which basically means that one person at least has to perform that obligation. If one person performs the ghusl, the obligation is uplifted from everybody. And if nobody performs it despite knowing that he's a Muslim, then they will all be sinners because they have abandoned a fard kifaya. And it's also a source of earning great rewards and virtues. In another hadith, it's mentioned that Allah forgives 40 major sins, not minor, 40 major sins of the one who has given ghusl to a deceased person and he hides his weaknesses. So sometimes when you are giving ghusl to a person and you see that he's got some weaknesses, something that you discover that nobody else knows and it was a secret, but you can see on his body that there's something there. And if you hide that, and you give him ghusl for the sake of Allah, then it says that 40 of his major sins are forgiven. Say subhanallah. And then again, make good intention that you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will fulfill a fard kifaya and many other things. Now, before we actually go on to the practical of the ghusl of the deceased, I just want to mention a few things that those who have this interest that, one day inshallah, I want to be the ghassal. What do you call the one who gives ghusl? Is called the ghassal, the one who gives the ghusl. Okay. And there are a few Madani pearls for the one who is a ghassal. So keep these things in your mind if you ever want to give ghusl to the deceased. The ghusl giving person should be in the state of purity. If a junub, someone in the state of ritual impurity, if he gives ghusl, what is the ruling? Will the ghusl take place or not? He himself is in the state of impurity. He himself has ghusl fard upon him and is giving ghusl to the deceased. What is the ruling? If he wants to do it, ghusl will be valid, but it is makruh. It is makruh. So it's better to be in the state of purification and more better if you're in the state of wudu as well. It is not disliked if a person gives ghusl without being in the state of wudu, as I mentioned, but it's more better to be in the state of wudu. Who should give the ghusl? Any Muslim can give the ghusl, but what is more preferable or what is more better? It is better that the closest relative of the deceased gives ghusl. If he is not present, does not know the method of giving ghusl, then any other person who is trustworthy and pious can give ghusl. So, unfortunately today, you have our Muslims, right? They kind of like shy away, or they are scared of giving ghusl to the deceased, and it's their own father, or it's their own, brother, or their own son, or their own cousin, or relative, or friend. And unfortunately, they don't understand that the reward, and they don't understand, that one day, look, it's your father, and that you want to send your father up with the best send off possible. So as a son, it's your first primary duty that you should be there at the forefront to give ghusl to your father. So unfortunately, it's the other way around nowadays. So you guys make this intention that if and when that time does come, I want to be the one that's going to give ghusl to my father. I want to be giving ghusl to my, close cousin, my friend, my family member. This is something that you should make as an intention right now. Okay, and for this you need to learn this. Hence we are in this session right now. Sometimes you come across a deceased person, and unfortunately, there's some bad, foul smell emanating from his body. What should you do in this case? Obviously, you're the Rasheed, you're trying to give ghusl, and it's difficult to give ghusl, then you should make the environment and the atmosphere fragrant. It's more easier for you to concentrate and give ghusl to the deceased. Can a man give ghusl to a woman? The answer is no. Can a woman give ghusl to a man? The answer is no. A man should give ghusl to a man, and a woman should give ghusl to a woman. Okay? So that's obviously regarding elders. What if it was a small boy? If the deceased is a small boy, even a woman can give him ghusl. Even a woman can give him ghusl. And what if the deceased is a small girl, it's a minor girl? A man can also give her ghusl. Small here means that the deceased should not have reached the age of sensual desires, meaning they didn't understand, what you can say the age of puberty, if you like, okay, or near the age of puberty. Okay, that's what it means by small, not baligh, as we say. Okay, all right. Before we move on again, one very, very important thing here is a matter regarding musta'mal water. Sometimes, you have a bucket of water. You're going to use that water, right, over here, for example. If you give me this demonstration. You've got this, right? You've got this is full with, water, filled with water. And if the person who's giving ghusl is not in the state of wudu, okay, or is in the state of ritual impurity, okay, is impure, and this water is unused, and my finger, any part of my body, the fingertip or my nail, whatever goes into that, this water, because it's a small quantity, small amount, it becomes maya musta'mal. You all know the mas'ala of maya musta'mal, becomes used water. And that is not able and worthy of now being used now to give ghusl to that deceased. Okay, because it's used water. It's not impure, okay, but it's not a purifier as well now, because it becomes used. So if that ever happens, or maybe some part of the body of the deceased goes into there, so that water has become maya musta'mal, used water. You can't use it now. So if that ever does happen, there's one solution for this. And what is that? Is you put more water into it, more fresh water, in such a way that the fresh water, the unused water, the quantity of that is more than the quantity of the used water. So then now we will say that this is now back to fresh water, and you can reuse that as well. Does everybody understand that, right? So that's the one solution that you have, that if the water becomes musta'mal, then you can't give ghusl to the deceased. It's a very, very important matter. So sometimes you don't realize. Okay, so the best thing to do is either be in the state of wudu, or wash your hands and your arms beforehand, at least, the very least, that if your hands do go into the water, and the water does not become my musta'mal and used water. Now, moving on. What are you going to do next? The first thing that you do, now we are starting the process of ghusl mayyit now, okay? So you've done everything beforehand, okay? Now the ghusl mayyit, the first thing that the person who is giving ghusl, okay, should do is that he should light up joss sticks or frankincense, okay? So agarbatti in our zaban, agarbatti. You should move it around the bench of the ghusl 3 times, 5 times, or 7 times. 3 times, 5 times, or 7 times. Except then let's start from specifically for anyway.
Let's see, start
from the head side and you go all the way around right hand side and you go all the way to the left. You do that either 3 times, 5 times, or 7 times. Okay? Lay the deceased on the bench in the same way as he is laid in the grave. As you can see, this dummy, this is how it's going to be laid in the grave. Cover the portion of the body from the navel to the knees. So the navel, which is the belly button, up to the knees with a cloth. So which cloth should we use? As you can see here, it's now you keep the camera on this here. So as you can see here, it's a black cloth we use, and there's a reason behind using a black cloth. Why? Nowadays, white cloth is used to cover the body during ghusl. But what happens once it gets wet, the sitter of the deceased is exposed right to his, the cloth, and you can see his skin on cloth. Or even if this does get wet, it won't expose his private parts by his sitter. And as you can see here, this black cloth is actually folded once. Okay, so they folded it. Okay, so therefore it's more better to keep it folded. It's like a double cover, if you know what I mean. Okay. Now, once you've done that, now you've covered the sitter. You see, don't forget the deceased most likely will have his clothes on. So you need to remove his clothes now. Okay. So sometimes, you know, whilst removing the clothes, you must take extreme care that you don't look at the private parts. Okay. And you know, sometimes the clothes, they're so, like you say, tight and stuck to the body that it's really hard. Obviously, you have the, you know, appropriate equipment like scissors or knife at that time, and those who understand this better, they can obviously at that time cut through the shirt or the sweater or the trousers if need be. If need be. Okay? Now, the ghassal, so Haji Abdul Rasheed is the ghassal, he is the one that's going to give ghusl, the ghusl giving person. Okay? He should rub a cloth on his hand. If you don't, then you got a glove, obviously. In today's day and age, you got them gloves. Okay? So this is the first thing you must do. The last thing you want is your bare hand physically touching the private parts of the deceased person. So you want to have a cloth or a glove on your hand. And the first thing you do in a ghusl mayyit is istinja. You do istinja. Right? So this is where we stop, because I've just been given the sign that we stop, inshallah. And then from here, we will continue the next segment. And this, like I said, it's not going to be done in not 15 minutes, okay? We're going to do, inshallah, in a bit of detail. And hopefully, inshallah, over the next 2-3 weeks, we'll cover the ghusl mayyit, then the kafan of the mayyit, and after that, the burial of the mayyit as well, inshallah. So whatever we have remembered today, may Allah Ta'ala grant us all the ability to remember it, and inshallah, act upon it. Ameen. بجاه النبي الأمين صلى الله عليه وسلم صلوا على الحبيب صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. जी जी